Tell me when you're ready. Good afternoon, members of the media, and to our viewing audience across the various platforms. I am Kate Trotman, the Public Relations Officer of the IDA, and I welcome you to today's press conference for February 27th, 2024. Let me first take the opportunity to apologize for our delayed start, but as we are here ready to go, we will be focusing today on the hosting of the IDA's Plenary Insight program, where we deliberate on the key issues unearthed from the plenary sittings and provide the IDA's perspective on these issues from the perspective of realizing a self-determined Tobago positively contributing to the national economy. The IDA's Plenary Insights will be presented monthly on the Tuesday that immediately follows the plenary sittings. Today, we will be addressing the priority matters that have arisen from the 27th plenary sitting that occurred on Thursday, the 22nd February 2024. The priority matters that will be addressed are the safety and security of Tobago, the poor THA board accountability and governance, which tends to lead to corruption, waste, and mismanagement, the lack of accountability and transparency of secretaries, strengthening the Tobago Public Service, URP, CPEP, and development programs in Tobago service delivery. And we will share some ideas for economic development in Tobago. In pursuing this evening's session, we will adopt the format of sharing the insight on each priority area and give the opportunity for questions that may arise from this area. We will continue in that fashion until we have covered the entire array of topics for the afternoon. To start us off, I will call to the podium Dr. Denise Sawyerford Angus, who will address the security and safety of Tobago. Dr. Angus, the podium is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Kay. And let me say a pleasant good afternoon to all of our persons viewing and listening out there, and to the members of the media. As Kay alluded to, this will be our regular session looking at insights into the plenary sessions of the Tobago House of Assembly. And so this section I am addressing has to do with the safety and security in Tobago. You know, with the increasing spate of crimes, murders, and the obviously porous border that has been penetrated, most recently with the oil spill, and even 2 years ago, where the boat with the dead bodies entered our shores, it is evident that the safety and security in Tobago is under threat. The statistics show no hope for improvement with what is currently done or perhaps not done, not being done, and we must begin to find other solutions to the unabated number of crimes in Tobago. In these compelling circumstances, the position of the Innovative Democratic Alliance is that Tobago must be a part of the National Security Council, and all efforts of this administration should be devoted to addressing this matter in discussions with the central government. The idea, consistent with its vision, believes that Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago will be safer with Tobago informally accommodated at the National Security Council now, and that it be added to the Constitution for the medium and long-term benefit of all in this country. This is what the members of the Tobago House of Assembly legislature should debate and unanimously send to central government. The approach of the courtesy arrangements that the Chief Secretary dubs his Security Council, comprised of a committee of public officials who he has no jurisdiction over, while there is an extremely poor relationship with their superiors. It feels like chewing beef without gums, without teeth. We may very well choke on a well-intentioned action that costs us a lot more in the end. If the central government challenges the legality of this process, the Tobago House of Assembly will have to spend money to legally defend their actions rather than using persuasion to have Tobago obtain a seat at the National Security Council. We must avoid unnecessary legal battles that drain already sparse resources and hinder progress. This administration has to change its approach, since it is already growing a reputation of the administration with the largest legal expenditure during its tenure. The IDA believes that the central government can be persuaded to allow Tobago the opportunity to participate in the National Security Council. Having a seat at the National Security Council then ensures workability of the committee that the Chief Secretary is setting up in Tobago. It also gives assurance for a budget dedicated to this activity instead of the administration seeming to misappropriate funds to pay for activities that are not under their purview. It is unfortunate, though, that the people cannot be assured of the current Chief Secretary's ability to negotiate this, given his ongoing public conflict with the Prime Minister, who is the head of the National Security Council. And this is a great opportunity lost to us. Additionally, the proposal of the Chief Secretary's Security Council is further entrenching THA as a competitor with the private sector industry, where he proposes to use some funding from his private security service, therefore removing money from that aspect of the private sector to now fund this committee. Let's face it, there's no budgetary allocation for this THA Security Council, and none will come from the central government if it reacts negatively to this unnecessary posture of the Chief Secretary and his administration without looking towards meaningful collaboration. Without a budgetary allocation, funds will have to be moved around to facilitate this entity, requiring the public officers to literally work magic. And when they cannot work that magic, they are then blamed as lazy and unproductive. The protection of Tobago's communities, private security, and households with technology-driven security can be implemented implemented, with Tobago having a seat at the National Council and therefore integrated into the national security apparatus. A gun in Tobago endangers Trinidad. A gun in Trinidad endangers Tobago. Collaboration is key. We also must think further for what can create a transformation in this whole process of crime. And in so doing, we must look at youth development, crime prevention strategies, including parent development and support programs. And an absolute must is the beginning to ensure that we have an innovation in our school curriculum. By investing in our youth and strengthening our community engagement and reforming our education system to cater for all, we can create a safer and more resilient Tobago. I will take questions at this point. Okay, so since we don't have any questions at this point, I will ask Ms. Strutman to share with you what her insights are into the economic development in Tobago and board accountability under this administration.
Thank you, Dr. Angus. Let me take the opportunity to first address the issue of board accountability under this administration. The institution that is the Tobago House of Assembly plays a crucial role in governing Tobago's affairs, including its economic development and public service delivery. Over the years, it has become the norm to create state agencies and use these as the mechanism for facilitating government involvement in the aforementioned areas. The appointment of state boards to these entities have been the means by which they are meant to govern in the best interests of the state, but more so in the best interests of the tax-paying public. However, recent observation has raised serious concerns about the accountability and the effectiveness of THA boards under this current administration. We have noted the worrying trend of an increase in executive chairmanship appointments in the THA state agencies. Case in point, TTAL, SPEL, and I believe TADCO. This triggers serious alarm bells, given the inherent risk of such an approach. It is to be noted that the concentration of powers to one individual, particularly through the role of the executive chairmanship, poses significant unchecked authority risks, as well as proper financial reporting and auditing risk. It creates the scenario that we refer to as himself to himself, and this does not augur well for accountability and oversight. Let me reiterate, the unchecked power wielded by executive chairman can result in substantial financial losses to THA state companies. And it is a question that we need to ask ourselves, given the fact that there appears to be a lack or limited financial reporting by THA boards. This is another worrying issue. It raises concerns about the financial viability of these state entities. Does the lack of reporting hint at the worrying issue of mismanagement of resources or wastage of resources? Or I dare say, does it even hint at corruption in the operations of these entities? The public must be made aware of the financial performance of all THA boards. Failure to provide transparent financial report raises questions about the operation, efficiency, and financial viability of these entities. Further, any lack of independent auditing and compliance with statutory regulations exacerbates accounting and accountability issues. Another challenge rears its head with the issue of inadequate board tenures. The practice of appointing boards for one-year terms or even indeterminate tenures hinders the strategic planning and continuity in plan implementation of these entities. Without clear mandate, which usually comes from the strategic planning process, the performance, and without performance evaluation, boards lack direction, stability, and it facilitates the potential for abuse by line secretaries. I want to urge the media and the Tobago population. We must demand answers regarding the selection criteria for the board chairs and board members. We must ask questions regarding the strategic objectives of these THA boards and their compliance with various statutory regulations. Today, the IDA calls upon the media and all Tobagonians to ask the tough questions and to demand accountability from the THA boards. I ask, how much public funds are being allocated to these boards? And are we receiving value for money? As we scrutinize the productivity of other public entities, we must not overlook any governance failure within the THA. Therefore, transparency, accountability, and non-negotiable principles of good governance. And it is incumbent upon us, the public, to hold our leaders to account. While productivity of other public services are being scrutinized, I would like to say that we cannot ignore the potential for corruption, waste, and mismanagement within THA boards. In the same manner that we demand accountability from the public servants, we also demand accountability from the various boards and the members of these boards. It is the perspective of the IDA that the investment made into state entities aimed at the delivery of public service and aimed at economic development, it is a costly exercise and one that therefore demands the level of accountability all the way through. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give serious consideration to the activities of the various boards. They are accountable to the people, to the taxpayers who are bearing the burden for financing their operations. I now open the floor to any questions that may arise from this particular priority area and the insights so presented.
We had one question earlier from before what are the views on the Sherman Connector project?
Yes, Dr. Angus will take that. Okay, Dr. Angus will address that question when she comes back to the podium. If there are no questions relating to the board at this time, I will go ahead to the other priority areas, which focuses on some of the ideas for economic development in Tobago. So let us now address that area. Given the steady and continuing decline of the Tobago economy since 2022, under the reign of this THA administration, it is imperative that we address the issue of Tobago's economic development. We must approach our economic development with clear vision, alacrity, and focus. We must have a clear vision that allows us to identify and select key areas or clusters for development and entrepreneurial pursuit. As a people, we must display a readiness to increase our productivity, efficiency, and improve customer service and satisfaction. We must demonstrate an eagerness to embrace appropriate technologies, research and development in the pursuit of economic goals. And we must adopt a focus that keeps us committed and on track to realizing our goals. Here is just but a synopsis of some of the business ideas that can be considered as we go forward. We should pay special attention to the support of Tobago communities and their entrepreneurs. Therefore, the IDA advocates for tailored business support programs to empower communities, entrepreneurs, fostering economic resilience and self-reliance. This could include such approaches and mechanisms as training, mentorship programs, incubator services, just to name a few. We should also explore the opportunity for partnership with elite universities in key areas such as tourism, environmental studies and management, and natural therapy. Collaborating with renowned international institutions to establish campuses in Tobago will enhance the educational opportunities, drive innovation, and attract a student population from around the world. In fact, the attracting of a student population can contribute significantly to inflating the Tobago population, strengthening or growing the market size, and creating greater opportunities for the viability of local entrepreneurs and their businesses. Maybe it is time for us to also explore the possibilities that may lie in a Tobago capital market and business financing mechanism. And this is in addition to our well-touted Tobago Development Bank. Establishing capital marketing and financing mechanism can provide vital funding to local business and stimulate economic creation, economic growth, and job creation. We should also explore the possibilities of establishing Tobago-owned companies, giving Tobagonians the opportunity, both as residents and the diaspora, to have ownership in various businesses that are Tobago-based with significant potential to generate revenue streams and empower Tobagonians. This could include such entities as the divestment of SPEL, So it's no longer run as a state entity, but Tobagonians are given the opportunity to own shares in such a company. Ownership of a thing normally heightens the degree of care, productivity, and efficiency in the operation of such ventures. So maybe it is time that we look at various state entities and divest them from the Tobago House of Assembly, with them holding possibly minor shareholdings, and having the public sector, the private sector, be more critically involved in the operation of these entities. We should also explore developing a robust agricultural sector. By prioritizing agricultural development, Tobago can work towards achieving food sovereignty, reduce its dependency on imports, and create substantial livelihoods for farmers and rural communities. In this area of, or in this age of innovation, it is time that Tobago looks at the possibility of creating branded products that it can export. Given that we are a tourism-based economy, the time has arrived for us to consider creating Tobago-branded hotels that can be exported and generate significant employment, but also significant revenues. The development of marinas and shipbuilding industry. By developing marinas, promoting shipbuilding, we can capitalize on Tobago's marine resources, creating employment and economic opportunities in the marine sector. We can also look at creating health or developing our health and wellness industry. Despite the recent oil spill we have unfortunately experienced, Tobago still has natural beauty and wonders, which once properly harnessed can provide a significant foundation for a wellness industry that is second to none. I want us to note that through strategic investment and partnerships, we can realize our vision of a prosperous and a self-determined Tobago that positively contributes to the national economy. Therefore, I am saying the idea is positioning that it is time for us as Tobago to take a more in-depth look at possibilities we have never imagined before, but now in this dynamic environment may create the potential for growing our industries and for broadening the income earning potential of the island. We need to remember that even though we are tourism-based, the production of capital services is critical to growing the tourism industry. And what I mean by capital services are the production of goods and services that in themselves can be used to create other goods and services. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is but a synopsis of some of the business ideas that can be considered as we look at growing the Tobago economy and reversing the declining trend that we find ourselves going down that slippery slope for the last 2 to 3 years. I now open the floor for any questions that may have arisen from this priority area. Okay, it means I was quite clear and explicit, and therefore I give the opportunity to Dr. Angus to deal with the other two segments that are priority areas. Dr. Angus, I now call on you to look at the final two priority areas as we address and provide Tobago with the ideas insight from the plenary sittings.
Thanks again, Ms. Trotman. And, as you talk about state as boards and their accountability and how they do things, I wish to challenge the minority to do a checkup on the pulse of the health board, the Tobago Regional Health Authority board, and to follow up on the recent expose on the ophthalmology services in Tobago. I believe if you ask the right questions, well, if you care to, that it will be an eye-opener for Tobago. So I request that you do your job in the minority and ask the pertinent questions so the people of Tobago can feel satisfied that this service is being delivered efficiently and in an accountable and transparent manner. I challenge you that you get that on your next set of questions for the secretary in the House. And so I believe the question coming forward from the media is, what do we think about the Shervan project? It is clear that this administration believes in ruling by lawlessness. Land acquisition is a parliamentary function, and I admonish anyone out there that no one from the Tobago House of Assembly can come to you and force you off of your lands or give you a carrot to get off of your lands without it being debated, without it being taken to Parliament, okay? And that is to protect you, the average citizen out there, from your lands being arbitrarily taken from you and you getting peanuts in return. And so the present day scant regard for private property ownership in developing state projects is nothing short of hypocritical in this administration. They complained before they got in there and even marched on the airport issue for landowners when they were out of office, but now they are doing worse to Tobagonians with regard to due lawful process. The law is there to protect the vulnerable from being disadvantaged. Tobagonians have a right to the peaceful enjoyment of their property, and it is unacceptable that their tax dollars are being used to defend unlawful actions. Flagrant breaches of the EMA laws with the Tobago taxpayer footing the legal costs to their favored attorneys. How much was that legal cost to defend the EMA matter? All administrations need to abide by the EMA. Apart from being lawful, it protects all of us from the arbitrariness of developments, whether private or public, which erode the constitutional right we all have to peaceful enjoyment of our property. Our tax dollars and money for Tobago's development has been used to defend the ill-advised actions of this administration. Who are those lawyers benefiting, and how much has that cost been to us? This same administration, when it was in opposition, as I said, they marched and protested against some of the things we're seeing happening here now, when Tobagonians were being affected. And what they're doing now is even worse. Typical Animal Farm story. You know, we can't deny the poor reviews that they have gotten consistently from the CivilNet survey. And it means that this is not about one entity, CivilNet. It's about the people of Tobago who are feeling concerned that this administration, this legislature cannot take Tobago forward, because all sides got licks inside of there. And it is not something that we should ignore. This administration and the minority in the House need to begin getting bigger voices in terms of championing Tobago's future. We can't continue every year for CivilNet and others to have this survey that continues to take us down the road, showing great dissatisfaction of Tobagonians with how the island is being run. The idea questions the advice that this administration is acting on, because all they're doing is creating future debt for the next administration by crediting roads and infrastructure development works. They complained about inheriting debt from the last administration, but creating the same debt for future administrations. What has changed? Nothing. Tobagonians must not ignore the disturbing trend of secretaries and public officials traveling without public notification, which has become the norm in the current administration. And from the chief secretary's own mouth, we hear that many of them travel and they don't even bring a note to the Executive Council. Is when they come back, they bring in a note to the Executive Council for reimbursement. The Executive Council is not and should not be used as a rubber stamp. If you are to travel, you need to provide the reason for travel. You need to provide a team of technical people you're taking with you for travel, and the budget, that you can be assured the budget is available within your votes. The Executive Council then decides whether that travel is going to be impactful on the development of Tobago, whether the team you're taking is the team that should be going, and whether the budget can be borne by the current economic status of the administration. These are all reasons that must be taken into consideration before anyone gets on that plane or boat or whatever they're taking to travel. And so the lack of transparency in these travel arrangements raise serious questions about the accountability to the people of Tobago. In the legislature, we hear long delays and evasive responses to questions asked in the House, and this must be deemed disrespectful to the people of Tobago and unacceptable. The minority is not asking for himself, he's asking on behalf of the people. And those answers you expect to give should be to the people. This is our money we're asking you to account for. So, dodging and hiding from the questions is not acceptable. Tobagonians deserve timely and honest answers from their elected representatives, not evasion and obfuscation. Secretary James has to tell the people of Tobago who were his benefactors for the $69,000 plus trip that he took on return to Tobago, and we still have no information on. Secretary James has to tell the people of Tobago who he carried as his team to support the visit that he attended supposedly on behalf of the development of Tobago. And I understand he's awaiting reimbursement. But according to the Chief Secretary's statements he made in the news at the time of the Secretary's return, the Chief Secretary said he was not approving a reimbursement for that travel because, number one, he was not aware of the travel arrangements to go out. Number two, he was not aware of the emergency travel arrangements to come back in, and therefore, being unaware of all of those circumstances around that, he was not approving a reimbursement. And therefore, if Secretary James is not getting a reimbursement out of the Tobago House of Assembly coffers, it means that this $69,000 was a gift. And therefore, I am calling on the Integrity Commission to launch an investigation into this gift of $69,000 that the Secretary got for his return emergency trip back to Tobago. We cannot talk about lack of accountability and transparency without reminding the people about the downright lies in tourism statistics and money spent on carnival activities, which to date no one knows the actual numbers. We addressed the tourism statistics in our last meeting, that it is time that this legislative house have a debate on what they consider to be the definitions that this island will use in evaluating their statistics coming out of the tourism numbers. There are many different definitions that can be used and twisted depending on which side of the fence you're on. And we are requesting that a debate be held, that a decision be taken as to what will Tobago's interpretation of its tourism numbers be, what will be the measuring stick, and therefore that is not left to subsequent administration's interpretation, but it is now a legislative interpretation as to how we are managing our statistics. I dare say if we do that and stop playing footsies with the numbers, then we will begin to move Tobago forward because we are all on the same page with where we are. Additionally, we are calling on the accounting for the monies spent on cultural activities. And I see it's not just in Tobago we having that problem, but in Trinidad. We don't always have to copy the bad. We need to start becoming accountable for the monies being spent in Tobago on our cultural programs. And I understand that our heritage people are still not paid. You can't continue to blame public servants over that. That is mismanagement by the administration. Nothing short of that. Ultimately, Tobago simply cannot afford the corruption, the waste, and mismanagement of its limited resources. It's time that this administration starts to do better. This is why the IDA is consistently calling for the need to have governance structures to control the executive powers in Tobago and even in Trinidad. While the IDA advocates for greater autonomy for Tobago, it would be dangerous if the current governance structures are not redesigned The idea is warning the Tobago population to examine the conduct of this administration without autonomy and asking what will become of Tobagonians? What will become of you? What will become of us if this administration, without proper governance structures, is allowed more autonomy to manage the EMA, town and country, a police force? What will become of our rights in Tobago? And so I will pause here to take any more questions before moving into my other area.
So we have one question from the fishermen who are affected by the oil spill, right, are not pleased with the operation operating out of the food hall. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this administration, they cannot just do a hodgepodge of decisions. It is time that they begin to look at the whole picture. It's time that they truly listen to their stakeholders and understand the solutions that may be coming out of those discussions. So all they're seeing is that we should just push them in an area. But did you ask them what they really want? Or what they see for themselves in the short term and even long term? Medium term? Only the fisher folk can be held in a meeting to discuss. They're the only ones who can decide what their future looks like in the short, medium, and long term. And this is a chronic mistake that this administration continues to make, where they feel that whether they're discussing with a few, but they don't have a discussion with the wider stakeholder views to get their understanding of where they are and where next they see themselves going. And therefore you work with them to get there. It's the same problem we have with the carnival band leaders, where they just make a decision that they saw this bright vision and this is where the carnival band leaders must go. That cannot happen. That is not democracy in a modern world. That autocratic leadership must stop. And therefore engagement, proper and meaningful engagement with the stakeholders, whether it be the carnival band leaders or the fisher folk, must occur to truly hear what they are feeling, the pains they are experiencing, and to see how you can collaborate with them to truly get them to their next level. Like I said, whether it is a short term, medium term, or long term, you must have these discussions with them.
I think they attempted to do that this morning. They had a meeting there. So do you think from after that meeting, they should have done that before instead of just rushing into that?
But of course, the first thing you do is talk to the stakeholders. You don't just go and do things for them just because you believe that it is what is best for them. You have to have conversations with people. You must have conversations with people. You are not the only supposed bright spark who wake up from a dream and feel that you have a vision. All stakeholders, they live the experience. There's no secretary in there who lives the experience of what a fisherman has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, the only way you could get those answers is by holding those consultations. So yes, they're late. They should have done that in the first place. Okay, so I will take on the last topic, which is dear to my heart. Because too often I am seeing where public servants are being accused time and time again by this administration. And this administration ought to accept that an efficient and effective public service is critical to Tobago's development. Our public institutions are the backbone of our democracy and play a vital role in delivering essential goods and services to our citizens. And therefore, I urge this THA administration to invest to develop, not discredit, the Tobago public service. It is imperative that we support and strengthen our public service to ensure it continues to serve the needs of the people of Tobago. Instead of throwing public servants under the bus with every challenge this administration faces, it is time to think innovatively and implement a public service skills development program in Tobago. We need to invest in the training and development of our public servants to enhance their capabilities and effectiveness. In this rapidly advancing world, training in career development must be embraced as a continuous journey. It is also just as critical that we create upward mobility and professional growth for our public servants, ensuring that they are equipped to meet the evolving needs of our society. At the same time, our senior public servants, who are our secretaries and assistant secretaries, perhaps ought to put themselves in a training program also, so that they can understand the parameters of their reach and don't make decisions that are outside of the implementation of the public servant, because that too is one of our challenges. And so put everybody in a training program. Even there should be an integration of training and development components into existing programs, such as the Unemployment Relief Program, the URP, Community-Based Environmental Protection and Enhancement Program, CPEP, and Development Workers Initiative. It's not enough to just put persons in there for life at a salary that can't take them anywhere anytime soon. It is time that we invest in training and providing skills development for all of these areas that makes them marketable to any other area and not just the THA. By enhancing the skills and capabilities of workers in these programs, we can further support the public service and contribute to Tobago's overall development. Let me make it pellucidly clear that the IDA stands firmly in support of our Tobago's public institutions, and we will continue to advocate for the empowerment and strengthening of our public service, recognizes its crucial role in driving Tobago forward. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I will invite Ms. Trotman to close out the press conference. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have presented, the IDA has presented its plenary insights, and it is our hope that the information shared will indeed trigger the sort of thought pattern necessary for us to hold our leaders accountable. If there are no further questions, then we have come to the end of today's IDA Plenary Insight briefing. I thank you for joining us, and you can follow us on Innovative Democratic Alliance at Facebook, at Instagram, and on TikTok. We do look forward to sharing with you at our next Plenary Insights briefing, which would be in March, the Tuesday after the plenary sitting. And we do want to wish you, as we leave you, that you continue to have a very productive day. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much.